I'm Neale Donald Walsch, and as some of you may know, I wrote a series of books called Conversations with God, in which I shared with readers an experience that I had now almost 25 years ago. Actually, now that I think about it, more than 25 years ago, uh, at a time when I was deeply frustrated with my life, and actually, to be honest, very angry about my life. And I was angry with God. I believed that there was an essence called God, but I was very angry with God because nothing in my life was working. I couldn't make my relationships work. I couldn't make my livelihood, my career work. I couldn't even make my health work. I was in an automobile accident in which I actually broke my neck. And so it was just a time in my life when nothing was working, very much the way it is these days around the world with all that's happening now with our economic challenges, with the health challenges that many people in the world are facing, and with the racial injustice situation that we are seeing arising all over the world. So I was in very much the same situation individually that people collectively are experiencing now on the planet. And I had no one to turn to. So I was by myself, living alone. I did not have a life partner. So I had no one to turn to. And I wrote an angry letter to God, actually. If you can believe it, I actually sat down and I wrote an angry letter to God. Dear God, what does it take to make life work? And I remember writing, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? There's obviously something I don't understand, the understanding of which would change everything. What is it that you want from me? And believe it or not, I actually heard a voice over my right shoulder, and it was a very gentle, sweet voice that said, Neale, do you really want answers to all of these questions, or are you just venting, just getting it off your chest? I said, well, I am venting, but if you have answers, I'd like to know what they are. Of course, I looked around, there was no one there, and I thought, great, not only am I angry, and now I'm going insane because there's nobody in the room. But I let myself just have that feeling because it felt like that there was somebody else in the room. I just couldn't see anybody and I didn't know what that was about. But I allowed myself to fall into the experience. And that's, when people ask me for advice on how they can connect with the source of all of life that I call in my language God, I tell them to do the same thing that I did. Just surrender to however that shows up. Maybe it may be a voice, somebody you don't see. Maybe it may be a feeling that you're feeling inside of yourself that you've never quite felt before. Maybe it might be a signal that you get from the outside world. Like the poster that you might see on the street, or a billboard on the highway, or the chance utterance, a chance remark that a friend makes that you just happen to run into on the street somewhere. So you see, these messages come to us from that divine source in 1,000 different ways across 1,000,000 moments in our life. And there's no one way that it happens. So you have to keep yourself open, keep yourself available. And when you receive that message, whatever it might be, allow yourself to fully embrace it, to step into it, to not ignore it, to respond in a positive way to what it is inviting you to notice and to know, to understand and to experience. And that's the hardest part of it, because of course nobody wants to believe that we are receiving information directly from the source. So it's very difficult for us to believe that. But I want to share with you a thought about that. The reason that it's hard for us to imagine that we're receiving a message directly from the source is that we think that the source is separate from us. It's up there and we're down here, and never the two will meet, except maybe on Judgment Day when we're going to be told whether we're going to go there or going to go there. In my case, there was no question. I'm going down there because I've not been a really good person in my life. But what I've come to understand is that there is no separation between the source and between us, that we are all made up of that essential energy, and that we respond to the impulse of life. The impulse of life is for us to join together with all the rest of life in every one of its forms. You know, have you ever had a chance to look at the night sky? In your life, have you ever maybe lying on the grass or on the beach or even in your backyard somewhere, and you look at the night sky on a cloudless night, and you see all the stars, and you fall in love? You literally fall in love with the sky. I mean, in a sense, you have a feeling of great love for the sky, and you almost wish that you could connect and be part of that. That's a feeling that's very common. Almost everyone has had that feeling at least once in their life. That's an impulse. It's the divine impulse that resides within every aspect of life that pulls us together. It's an impulse that brings us into a sense of oneness with each other, and not just a sense of oneness with each other, but an experience of oneness with each other. And that means not only that we are one with everything else, not just the stars, not just the sky, but everything that we see in the universe and everything we see on this planet, that we are one with every other human being and with every other life form and with every other aspect of physical existence in the universe. We're one with all of it. But here's what's interesting. Not only are we one with all of that, we are one with the source, because the source of all of that is, in fact, that which it has made manifest. That is, there's only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is. And that's the message that I received when I experienced what I call my conversations with God. So, you know, I was so intrigued. I was so excited and so inspired by what I was experiencing that I wrote it all down. I actually wrote down what I was hearing in my mind's ear and inside of myself. I wrote down what I was feeling. And the interesting thing was that as I was writing down what I was feeling, more questions came to me, questions about what I was feeling. So I asked those questions, and I kept a record. I wrote down what the questions I was asking, and I got answers, and that brought up other questions, and I got answers. And before I knew it, I was involved in a dialogue, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, that filled many, many, many pages, hundreds of pages of handwritten, a yellow tablet, a yellow legal pad. And before I knew it, I had this thick, many, many, many pages of questions and answers. And then I was told in that dialogue, you will make of this one day a book. And I thought, yeah, no, nobody's going to, even if I did, nobody's going to publish it. Nobody's going to put the book out. This guy is talking to God. Stop the presses. We got to get this book out real fast. This guy's talking to God. Nobody's going to believe that for a minute. But you know what? I sent it to a publisher on a dare. I wanted to see if there was anything to what I was experiencing. So I dared myself. I just sent it to a publisher. And they actually published my handwritten notes. And it became a book which I called Conversations with God. And I didn't think anyone would ever publish it, nor did I think anyone would ever buy it or purchase it or obtain it or read it. Well, I was wrong, because it wound up being read by 15 million people in 37 languages, in all of the major languages and several of the minor languages on Earth. And suddenly I realized that the messages were never intended just for me, but they were intended for humanity at large. And the biggest message, and this is what I'm glad I have a chance to share with you during this extraordinarily challenging time in our life, the biggest message was God is talking to all of us, not just to Neale, but to all of us all the time in 1,000 different ways, as I said a minute ago, in 1,000 different ways across 1,000,000 moments in our life. So that, and it's not just that God is talking to us, God is actually in us. That is, we are made up of the source energy that I call God. You can call it anything you want. You can call it the divine source. You can call it energy. You can call it the originating vibration of the universe. Doesn't matter what you call it, but that is what we are. I like to call it love, actually, just pure love. So what if we were made up of just pure love? And that would be the question that we could ask ourselves today. Is there a way that we can deal with, that we can interact with all that is going on in life today around the world from a place of pure love? Can we love each other? Can we actually love the events? Not that we welcome the events, but we love the fact that they're happening because they give us a chance to evolve as a human species and to move to the next level in our experience of who we are. So we use all of life, the events that are welcome and the events that are not so welcome. And we use all of life to demonstrate as an opportunity for us to know who we really are and to place that into the experience of life itself. Now, when we do that as a global population, when we do that as a civilization, as a species, when all of us do that, of course, we create an enormous energetic field that can actually change the exterior environment and the exterior events with which we find ourselves involved. And that's how masters have created miracles. And we can do that as well, especially if we work together toward that goal and to produce that outcome. So if someone were to ask me, what would be my message for the whole world at this extraordinary time, I would say, see yourself as who you really are. Understand the wonder of it all, because you are full of wonder. In English, we say you are wonderful, wonderful. That is, you are full of wonder. The wonder of the universe itself, the wonder of that essential energetic signature, the wonder of that impulse that draws us all together, or if I could put it in my language, the wonder of love. If we could surrender to that idea, and if all of us could surrender to that idea, the world would change overnight. And that's the hope that we have for tomorrow as we are confronted with the challenges of today. So allow yourself to be that particular demonstration, to demonstrate your highest thought about who you are, about what life is, and about why things are occurring the way they're occurring, and watch your life change. First of all, I allowed myself to hear the invitation. And I didn't dismiss it. I didn't say, oh, it's just my imagination. Oh, I'm just making that all up, or somehow ignore it. So the first step in responding to the invitation from life itself is to really hear it and to not dismiss it, to not pretend or convince yourself that it's just your imagination. Because it's not your imagination in the sense that it's not real. It is very much real, very real, and very much what's happening. Then to step into whatever that invitation invites you to do. And it will see, and it's not like somebody is going to whisper in your ear and give you a lifelong plan. Even in my conversations with God, God didn't say to me, this is what I want you to do for the next 25 years. And I wasn't given a blueprint. I wasn't given an outline. I wasn't given a plan on all the things I should do. What I was told was use each moment, each interaction, every event in your life, even the small events, what you're eating, what you're putting on, what you're wearing, who you meet, how you talk to the person, the stranger on the street. Use each moment, and in each moment, you will know what the invitation is calling on you to offer on a moment by moment basis. See, and that's the difference. Most people are looking for a life plan. They want to know what they're supposed to do for the next 25 years. What is my life purpose? What is my life plan? But the calling is not about the next 35 years of your life. It's about the next 35 minutes. What are you going to be in the next 35 minutes of your life? Who are you going to meet, and how are you going to interact with them? And what are you going to share with them? And will you use those 35 minutes as a blessed event in which you bless their life because you came into their life and because of the way you touched their life? There was a master many years ago, a couple of thousand years ago, who said this. You may remember hearing about it because it was written about many times. He said, I have come that you may have life and that you may have it more abundantly. Wouldn't it be interesting if we had the courage to say the same thing? Maybe not out loud, nobody would really understand, but to say the same thing in our mind. That when we meet someone else, when we encounter another person, a member of your family, or a total stranger, a friend or a business associate, or anyone at all, wouldn't it be interesting if we said to ourselves in our mind, when we meet someone else on the sidewalk tomorrow, I've come that you may have life and that you may have it more abundantly. Your life will never be the same, but it will be better because our paths have crossed. I will see to it that that is what happens. If you live that way, it would take courage to think of yourself in that way. But if you lived that way, your life and the life of everyone you touched would change overnight. So when you ask, how did I respond to that call? I took the opportunity to dare myself. Could I be the best person I ever knew myself to be? And could I make sure that every interaction with every other human being, in fact, with everything, with the trees, with birds outside, with the sky, with my dog, with everything, could I decide that my interaction with the earth and with other people and every other life form was a demonstration of the highest and grandest thought I ever had about myself and about life. That takes courage because we want to think, I don't know about you, but I was trained to think small things, never boast, don't brag about yourself, don't think that you're more special than anyone else. Well, I don't. I don't think that I'm more special than everyone else, but I think that everyone is more special than they know that they are. And my opportunity is to allow them to see that in themselves. I call that giving people back to themselves. And that's how I try. I don't always succeed. I won't pretend that I never fail, but that's how I try to respond to the call. Yes, and I haven't really completed the construction or the recreation of the second Neale. I'm still involved in that process, but even now, even halfway there, it's much different than it was when I was in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s or even my early 50s. I'm a totally different person in the way I see life, in the way I approach life, and in the way I respond to life. Yes, completely different person. Trying to do exactly that. And if I had to use one word in the English language to capsulize that, to abbreviate that, the word would be evolution. I
Evolution.
believe that I'm involved in the evolution of my soul, and I believe that as I work to evolve my soul, that I can touch other people's lives in a way that can be of assistance to them as well. I try. I try to. I don't always succeed, but that is my effort. That is my mission, so to speak. Yes, my mission is to recreate myself in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever I held about who I am. That mission was given to me in conversations with God. And I try very hard to complete that mission each day in my life. I have a ritual in the evening when I'm falling asleep with my darling wife next to me. And as we're falling asleep, I'll turn to her in the last moments of our wakefulness, and I'll say to her, "How did I do today? How did I do today? Was I doing well?" And she'll tell me honestly, "Well, yeah, except for that moment around 4 o'clock when you were a little bit impatient or you got a little upset." But she said, "Yeah." And she is my monitor, my observer, who will tell me honestly how I did. So I hope that you have someone close to you. It doesn't have to be a life partner. It could be a parent or a brother or sister or a close friend, but find someone close to you who will speak the truth to you. And every so often ask them, "How am I doing?" And they'll tell you, and listen carefully to what they say. Yes, that's exactly what happened. As to how it feels, it's very, um, in some ways, scary, and it's also very humbling. The scary part is, I wonder sometimes, oh my gosh, what if 1,000 people, to just pick a number out of the air, what if 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people are listening to what I have to say and reading what I've written and following, the recommendations and the suggestions that I have placed into the world? Oh my gosh! So sometimes I get scared at night. Millions of people have read my books. Oh my gosh! I hope I didn't send them, on a bad path. Um, and yet it's humbling because yes, I have received many, many letters and emails and messages from people, and they tell me when I appear in public these messages, not me, but the messages from Conversations with God have changed their entire life and touched them in ways that they never dreamt could ever happen. So yes, it's been an interesting experience to realize, but that's your invitation. That's the invitation all of us have, because you do understand that if you personally decide to come from this place I'm talking about, to be the source of love and light and compassion and caring, forgiveness and understanding with everyone whose life you touch, at least to the degree that you find possible, if you decide to be that source, your life will change and people will start looking up to you. And then it's your opportunity to humbly embrace the larger reason that you are on the earth. The French call this raison d'etre, your reason for being. And this really is your reason for being. You didn't come here, for silly things like get the girl, get the guy, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the spouse, get the kids, get the better job, get the better car, get the better house, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get married 4 or 5 times until you finally find a person who's good enough for you. That's not why you came here. Those are things you're doing, but they have nothing to do with what you're being. What you are being is a demonstration of who you really are. Unless that's not what you're being, in which case your life will not be connected and it will not feel meaningful at the highest level. You'll spend the rest of your life trying to get the girl, get the guy, get the car, get the job, all that stuff. And after you get all that stuff, here's what's funny. You want to know what's funny about that? After you get all that stuff, you'll realize when you're around 75 years old, none of it is meaningful. None of it really means anything. The only thing that really means something is, how did I live my life? Who did I touch? And how did I touch them? What was the purpose of all of this? And then you'll know whether you have met your purpose at the highest level of which you were capable, whether you did your best. And so that's the opportunity that we all have in front of us. It's what I'm trying to do with my life. Well, not because there's something missing, but because the aspect of life that you wish to experience is greater than you could imagine. So it's like, it's not because something's missing, but because something is presenting itself to that you can be even more. For instance, let me give you an example. When I say to my wife, my beloved sweetheart, I love you, tomorrow I could say, I love you even more than I loved you yesterday. And the next day after that, I love you more and more and more and more. I love you more and more and more. Not because something was missing yesterday. There was nothing missing yesterday, but I discovered that what I had yesterday is expandable, like a balloon. It can get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, not because something's missing, but because there's this space inside of all of us to step into larger and larger versions of what's not missing. Well, at least they can touch the world in a way where the snowball begins rolling downhill and it becomes larger and larger. I call it the first domino. When the first domino falls, all the rest of the dominoes follow. And so we have an opportunity, each of us, to be the first domino. In my little foundation, I created the First Domino Award. I give the First Domino Award. It's a domino that's put on a plaque that we give to people who are demonstrating that they're willing to be the first domino. And so that's really the invitation. the invitation to be the first domino in your little world, in your community, in your household, in your neighborhood, in your country, and ultimately on your planet, to be one of the first dominoes and to decide to demonstrate for all of us who we really are by being our exemplar, by being our model, by being our example. That's the opportunity. And if we all accepted that opportunity, no matter what bad things are happening in the world, we would overcome them. Let me conclude my remarks by saying a huge thank you and sending all of my love to my colleague and wonderful, wonderful friend, Irvin Laszlo, a man of enormous wisdom, a man of deep clarity, a man of unending love, and a man whose example we could all follow if we want to become the first domino. If ever there was a first domino, it's Irvin Laszlo. Irvin, I love you to pieces. You have shown me so much about what it means to be truly a wonderful human being. Thank you for the opportunity to spend this time in this event that you have helped to create.